Welcome to the show today. We are going to talk about Day is Done, the second to last, or if you want to be fancy music person, you say the penultimate track on Wind, Water, Stone. Day is Done. It's a fantastic piece exploring opposites, and we're going to talk a little bit about harmony, both pragmatic harmony, metaphorical harmony, philosophical harmony, all the harmonies, all of them. We're going to talk about all of them. Just kidding. But we are going to talk about a lot of it right here on the Sound of Ages podcast.
I was content, she would keep sticks, so I was content, she would keep sticks, but where she would
Well, the day has begun.
And so let's talk about Day is Done.
It's a good rhyme. We'll skip forward to my favorite time of day when the sun is down and I'm laying there in the summertime. We open the shades to our window in the bedroom, and it's that dusky 9 p.m. summer night, and it's just calm and peaceful and awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. Pretty great. So that's what this piece feels like to me, by the way.
Huh.
That moment, you know? It's very cool.
Awesome.
I also feel like this piece in particular, of all the stuff that's on Wind, Water, Stone, this piece to me represents like early Drew
yes.
sound. There's this folk pentatonic Appalachian sensibility in your early works that still stands, still holds really well. And this piece, I hear that really clearly. You know, it's not, I don't think that Appalachian sound is really in your works as of now. Like your most recent stuff, I don't really hear that, but
yeah,
in these early works, it really is. And it's really fun. So it was really cool to explore that sort of, it helped us, it caused us to produce a different tone when we were singing, and it was just fun to sing, you know, those planing moments that we'll get into, but it's really cool.
Yeah. I remember where those came from, so we can talk about that when they pop up.
Oh, sweetness. Well, the cool thing is that it just starts with this contemplative solo. Day is done, but love unfailing dwells ever here. With that E flat, though, it's like just going down, like you don't really know where you're. The first day is done feels like this nice major. If we're talking about harmony, I think this is a really interesting piece to talk about harmony. So if we were going to do, what are those books called? Harmony for Dummies. You know? The For Dummies series. So let's just say Harmony for Dummies is when multiple notes are happening at the same time, which feels kind of obvious, but if based on conversations we've had in previous podcasts and episodes, if we truly believe that harmony is simply a byproduct of good line, harmony, it's like I've been studying a lot about videography and cinematography and cameras. So I like every episode, my setup and lighting looks a little bit different because I'm experimenting and learning and getting better and better, hopefully. But it's like, you know, when you're filming, there's one single frame. And so when you have frames per second. And when you're watching, you watch linearly through time. And if you were to take a single frame, that's a snapshot in time. And I feel like harmony is like a single frame of a piece of music where it's like, this frame, what is happening in this frame?
Yeah.
Vertically, and that gives us harmony. And harmony can propel us forward and can have moments of tension or moments of kind of serenity or moments of openness. There's all kinds of harmonic language. So if you had to, there's different categories of harmony. And what are some of the basic categories of harmony that you would describe to a beginning composition student?
Well, one of my mentors who taught me so much about counterpoint, Philip Lasser, he describes harmony as the art of doubling and spacing. And what I think is an interesting definition about that is that it fights against a little bit the harmony for dummies idea, which is really how I was taught in the classroom. And I don't want to mean that in a rude way, but I think a lot of us experience that, where it is that sort of vertical snapshot. Here are the notes that are happening in an instant. How many of them are there? What do they look like relative to each other? And that's still true when you talk about doubling and spacing, because you can identify which ones are doubled. And the note that's doubled tells you something about not just what the chord is in isolation, but how it relates to other chords. And so if in doubt, the root note of the chord is probably doubled. But this idea of doubling and spacing, I also think gives you a sort of a horizontal definition of harmony too, because you can look over time and see patterns for which notes are doubled and what kind of spacing is maintained over time. And you can have sort of specific definitions of harmony where you say, like, okay, in this moment, things add up to a B flat major chord. Fine. In this passage, the doubling and spacing adds up to an impression that is, and we could use whatever imagery we want. It's like, it's soft yellow and luminous, or we could say it's, generally this is a B flat major sounding passage with kind of a gospel inflection. But keeping track of which, and we can do that because we have four voices that are each doing their own thing, and they create patterns that manifest themselves both in a snapshot or over time. And I think both impressions help us understand what we really mean by both the literalness of harmony and also like the feeling of harmony, which are both ways that we use the word all the time.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is when I tell you, there's the Jan LaRue's Guidelines for Style Analysis, really changed my whole life. Sorry,
wow.
I'm yawning.
Cam, it changed your life so much that you're falling asleep at the wheel.
I don't have my Monster yet. I only have this water. So
water's not going to cut it if you're talking about harmony.
Yeah. Well, but I was thinking about Jan LaRue.
Yawn.
It's Friday.
LaRue. Oh man, you can't.
Wow, I didn't even.
Yeah. Oh.
So I was and it was so cool. I mean, that's in that Renaissance class where I first heard Dufay, started Sound of Ages because of that, was actually the same semester I took where I had that book and that framework, and we were supposed to analyze a Renaissance piece. We had to do like 2 or 3 pieces per class period, and it was a lot. And the great thing about it is that he breaks up music into categories so you can analyze music using a similar language across style. So one reason that's important is if you get into the idea of, that's a dominant. Dominant might feel different if you're talking about Austrian classical era versus 20th century jazz.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're talking about really different sensibilities and like aural sense, like just physically aural sensations. So, but with Jan LaRue's guidelines for style analysis, he gives us a language where we could talk about both those things using similar words and be able to identify how the structure give and the nuts and bolts give it its style. And it was just so cool. No one had ever explained music analysis to me that before, and it opened up a whole world of possibilities. So when we talk about, so he has sound, harmony is the next category, then melody, then rhythm, and then growth. And we changed it to be form for the sake of the class. So we literally called it Schmurf. That was the acronym. So he goes, I need you to do 3 Schmurfs for next class period. It's like, man, 3 Schmurfs. They look little, but they are mighty assignments, anyway. but Schmurg, or growth over time. And when we'd get to harmony, you can write, I was like, oh, I can talk about music now. And so our tests were 3-hour tests. They were 3-hour exams, and they were only 2 questions long. And he's like, I fully recommend you take a full 90 minutes to write about each question. And it was handwritten in the testing center in those blue books. And it was intense, but I actually loved it. It was weird and nerdy, but I loved it. And then I got to be teaching at Spanish Fork Junior High, Spanish Fork High School, and I taught my beginning theory students, these little sophomores, about Schmurg, called it Schmurf again. And I was like, how do I talk about harmony when they don't know any theory yet? And it was like, what does it feel like? Like when these moments happen here, what is the mood and the emotional words? Because there's like, there is a feeling and an emotion with harmony, and then there's a technical side of harmony.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that you say that. And I think this piece explores a wide gamut of emotions with the use of harmony to express feeling and emotion behind the piece. And it switches back and forth between, like, it's kind of this contemplative moment, dark descending, and then this like almost rejoicing kind of gospel praise. And then it kind of goes back and forth and swings this pendulum, and the harmony plays just as big of a part as any other musical factor.
Yeah, well, that's so I'm down with everything you said, and that feature starts in the text, because we've got these 3 stanzas. Each one of them is built essentially the same way. It's very much like a hymn text in that way, because it has a constant metrical pattern, and each stanza breaks down where you have 4 lines that are a little bit kind of darker, softer imagery, and then you have 4 lines that are brighter imagery. So the first stanza, as an example, is, day is done, but love unfailing dwells ever here. Shadows fall, but hope prevailing calms every fear. Pivot, God, our maker, none forsaking, take our hearts of love's own making. Watch our sleeping, guard our waking, be always near. You can hear the pivot in the text, and it happens like clockwork. When I read this text, I was like, oh, well, that's an important feature of the text. Am I going to pick up that ball and run with it musically? You don't have to. And I say to students when I'm talking about text setting that I personally am really interested in picking up a text that I like and sort of holding it up and showing it to you. I really care about the text, and that you don't have to adopt that attitude. There's nothing like virtuous about it, but it's just how I like to do things. Some people could take a text and turn it upside down and play against all of the internal word rhythms and give you something really cool it's like a new angle that you'd never come up with.
His name is Francis Poulenc.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh yeah. No, exactly. And the funny thing, is, like, if you look at some of the pieces we've talked about before, I'm thinking about the Nunc Dimittis. I actually take a lot of cues from Poulenc and talk about a guy who was always completely in control of the material, but used that control to do sometimes like really violent and wild and
the best example to me is the from his Gloria, where you'd say the natural text goes Gloria in excelsis Deis, or in excelsis Deo.
Yeah.
Gloria in excelsis Deo, or something. I don't know. I just made that up.
Instead,
Gloria in excelsis Deo. And it's like literally on the wrong syllables is where the musical accent is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gloria in excelsis Deo, Gloria. But it's, I mean, and I don't know if I'm smart enough or like I haven't studied Poulenc enough to be like, and this is what he's doing with this. And this is the intention, other than the fact that he watched monks playing soccer one day from a coffee shop and said that image lives in his brain forever. And he has this paradoxical, like, world of opposites going in his head all the time. What did they call him? The sacred scoundrel or something like that. The scoundrel monk.
Yeah.
And it's this even if it's no other reason than that. But again, the relationship with the text is the primary then jumping point for any of the settings. Yeah.
Right. Regardless of how you work.
That's true.
Regardless of how you work with or sort of against the internal content of the text, you start with the text in order to figure out what your strategy is going to be. And I think we all love the Poulenc Gloria. Exactly. You don't have to be a Poulenc scholar to love it. You hear it and you're like, oh, that's awesome because it's fresh.
So yeah. Oh man.
Right. And also I feel
fresh.
like hearing Latin with the emphasis on the wrong syllable somehow is different than hearing English with the emphasis on the wrong syllable, right? There's somehow we have a wider berth of permission for a dead language. Although, I mean, I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm more and more interested in messing with those variables and, but again, that's just like, those are the composerly sort of like tools. And at the time I wrote this piece, first thing I did, like I always do and probably always will, is what does the text say and how is it structured? And in this case, it's got this, it's a little bit of chiaroscuro, kind of this like dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. And so in the music, as you pointed out, it starts out with this kind of searching sound and plaintive. It's this like day is done, the shadows are falling, all this kind of stuff, kind of feeling around for hope, feeling around for calm, but not quite having it yet.
Yeah,
and
there's something unsettled underneath. Yeah. And the key signature for those following our little Monday morning quarterbacking here it has one flat, and you could look at that and say like, well, are we going to hear F major or are we going to hear D minor? And the answer is probably not. We're not sure. Especially then when you hit this E flat here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna zoom in so everyone can see it clearer. This thing, it's like, there's some kind of modal sensibility happening, or what is going on? And then this D here in the alto and the tenor, which then again, the alto separates with this dissonance here between the D and the E flat, giving it that unsettled kind of feeling. And the soprano not really surrounding an F or a D. It's just kind of, like you said, wandering.
Yeah, well, you think about in tonal music, what we would call common practice music, what gives it its characteristic sound is that there's some kind of home base chord call it the root or the tonic or the one chord or whatever. And then there are these other neighboring chords that have kind of a specific gravitational relationship to the 4 chord being one, the 5 chord being the other. They live in these kind of adjacencies on the circle of fifths or fourths, and they are closely related chords in terms of key signature. And so you could say that the chords F major and D minor and B flat major and G minor and C major and A minor, they're all kind of like in the same zip code. And that's what you get here, is that for the most part, you have stuff that's kind of in the same zip code, but it's resisting giving you a total sense of home, because that's kind of the point. You don't, the day may be ending, or the day may be done, but the piece isn't done. And we want to resist that sense of comfortable closure or conclusion until we're really ready to experience it. And so the opening passage with these kind of liney, sinewy sort of lines that is in the zip code, but not settled, leads us then to the pivot in the text on that strong word God. And then you hear, oh, wait a minute, this is clearly different. Whether you're analyzing anything or not, you notice that this is clearly different.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating thinking about harmony, that you end it here on this B flat or this E flat triad, when it was like, are we in F or D? And then you end it with this hanging E flat that serves kind of like a 4 to that B flat sensibility, because that kind of, oh man, okay, I'm starting to get into too many weeds, but the plagal nature, I guess, of getting from the E flat to the B flat feels like this amen, but keeps projecting us forward. And then this part is just so cool to me. This is what we call planing. Planing meaning all the voices are moving in the same direction at the same time. And it happens in Debussy's music. It happens in Faux-Bourdon, which we've talked about before, in the Renaissance. It happens right here in gospel music. It happens in bluegrass music. It happens in so many genres across the world and across time period. There's this motion of like planing voices that is so compelling for some reason. And so when the text shifts for the first time, we have these harmonies, these chords acting kind of as one now, that are just moving us through God our Maker. And it really has that sort of Appalachian feel, because it happens so often in that style of music.
Well, there's two things.
And then we have it again, take our hearts.
Yeah. Okay, so two things. One is that when we talk about that feeling of harmony, I think one of the things that's super interesting is that at any given moment, I think how we're feeling harmony depends on our present perception of the context, our memory of what has happened, and our guessing about what's coming. Like we're always, because we're awake and curious just by creaturely definition, we're always existing in 3 places at once. Like what is actually happening? How does this compare to where I've been, and where on earth am I going? Right.
Because we perceive the world in narrative. That's like actually how we perceive everything, which is a sequence of cause and effect.
Right.
Like if that's how we perceive everything of reality, then it makes sense that we would perceive harmony in that same way. That's really cool. I never really thought about it, connecting those two ideas. That's awesome.
So at the top of the page, where we get the word fear that lands in a E flat major chord in first inversion, a couple of things are true. One is that a first inversion chord, it feels settled, but not all the way. It has a forward leaning kind of quality to it, because that the color tone, the third, is in the lowest voice instead of where it quote unquote belongs, which would be in the highest voice. And we don't know what it means in the moment that we're hearing the word fear, but the moment that we hear that word God spread across all four voices, first in the soprano, followed by the lower three. I think ex post, we look over our shoulders and say, whoa, this is home base.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Like
Right.
I didn't know this was home, but now we're home. And it's a little bit like, you're playing at your friend's house when you're a kid and you've never been there before, and you're running around the side yard and stuff, and they say, and you run through their back door with them, and then you go and you're like, oh, we're inside your house. Oh, this is your house, right? Like it dawns on you that you are someplace. And so
like just after the fact, right?
Yeah.
And so because of this change.
Yeah. So all that squirrely stuff at the beginning that's intentionally sort of eluding a sense of home, here it clicks that like, oh wait, this is where we went through the side door instead of the front door, but we're inside now. So there's that. I think ex post we're making sense of it. And then about planing, you're right. Like it's in all these traditions, and I think there's two things that are interesting about it. One thing is that it's in all these traditions, and yet was kind of ferreted out of our chorale tradition by some really strong ideas in the early, like that Renaissance to Baroque era, where we were formalizing ideas, because we had this notion that you shouldn't have parallel perfect intervals. So you shouldn't have parallel fifths, you shouldn't have parallel octaves. And in that like theory for dummies class, you'll hear people say things like parallel fifths are bad.
They are the devil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the tritone, but they have.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But so parallel
fifths are.
Write a parallel fifth.
The devil's nephew or something.
The devil's nephew. Yeah. Yeah. But you write a parallel fifth, and Bach rolls over in his grave or something like that.
Yeah.
And this kind of like this, it's like you get the junior varsity level appreciation of an idea, but it's really beaten into you. And so when you think about that, parallel fifths and parallel octaves are really significant, because if you have two voices, like imagine a soprano voice and an alto voice, or whichever pair, and if they're moving in exactly the same way but separated by either a fifth or an octave, it gives that very distinctive kind of a hollow sound. And what's really happening is that those two voices that could be independent aren't independent. They lose linear independence.
Yeah.
That's really, I would say that's the feature level description of what's going on, not bug level, this is bad. But our ancestors noticed that if you have two voices that begin moving in the same direction from note to note to note to note, and they're moving in parallel perfect intervals, those two voices, we can't tell them apart anymore. They sound like one voice. They sound like, they don't sound like two.
And it would like seem to fly in the face or be a paradox. You're like, wait, but isn't that the opposite of line independence that we've been talking about in terms of counterpoint for so long? And it's really interesting how, yes, and your concept of, but it's intentional. Like intentionality of moving these voices to be now feeling like one.
Yeah.
Whereas, which is so funny, because then you avoid parallel fifths at all costs in your part writing class. Because why? And I've heard a billion different answers from a billion different people as to why. And it's because now that doesn't sound like to the bass and the tenor voice anymore, but it's like, well, but you're thinking chord anyway. You're not even thinking about independent line in the first place. So it's just like an interesting thing, to juxtapose that. But
well, so the issue in planing then is that there's one specific kind of planing, faux bourdon, that managed to survive in all of those decades and centuries, and it's because it had this funny combination of a third and a fourth moving together, and we have this like special exemption, you know, for fourths in just that context. And so somehow that managed. But you have this basic paradox where all the voices moving together in a plane feels really intuitive. Like you get a bunch of people singing and you say, let's go, you know, like, and everybody's like, oh, I get this. And you can feel and find the notes that like glow together all the way up through that passage. And it feels great. And then somebody says, oh yeah, but can't do that because inside there are some parallel fifths. Can't do that. So I look at a thing like this, and certainly this was already a done deal a long time ago, because people, you know, Debussy would, or Boulanger would say that Debussy emancipated us from the tyranny of parallel fifths. So this is old news. But the point is that you have an intuitive gesture that requires parallel fifths, but you have to explain them away in a different way. And because we're sort of trained to think that parallel fifths are bad, and they're not bad. It's a line thickening decision. It's like an orchestrational decision rather than a contrapuntal decision. Because if you look at this on the page, even though you've got SATB, what you really have is a two-part counterpoint. You have an upper voice in the soprano being in an antiphonal relationship with a single lower voice.
That happens to be a thick line.
Yeah. So, and then there's a jazz arranger, William Russo, that talks about line thickness, and that was really helpful to me. So it's like solo trumpet in sax chorus or something like that. So you hear the soprano line, it's kind of like the precision of a ballpoint pen, and then those lower three lines taken as a single voice. It's like a Crayola marker or that, like the wedge cut edge of a highlighter or something like that, where like point and counterpoint, and we hear them as really just two voices contrapuntally that are doing this job of having kind of a conversation between the two of them. And that's why planing works, is because you lose your independence into a single ensemble gesture where you become a single voice.
Yeah. And that goes all the way through this whole next section of the text until, you know, you slowly get out of it, getting back into now dark descends, and we've subtly shifted our harmonic sense of home. Yep. The ground is shifted beneath our feet, and the texture shifts, calling on our conversation from last episode. And you have these sort of duet up here in the upper voice, duet down here. We're still working maybe with a primarily two-part texture with moderately thick lines. You've thickened the soprano line and you've thinned out the tenor bass line, so now they're even. And then I love this moment. It's one of my favorite moments. You are with us, ever lending new. That like true counterpoint now we get, which is just so beautiful. And now we go back to one, which is a perfect unison. Well, there's a fifth, but in the lower voices who have been counterpointing, they resolve to this same note. And then we go back to planing as one, which is really subtle, but really, really cool. And the harmonies kind of return to the similar type of language. I mean, we're in a different center. We're in it's a little bit lifted. It's a little bit brighter in terms of being in C, built around C versus B flat. But it has the same, it's in the same family, I guess I'd say. And again, we see love, 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 love. And then we get to this awesome moment here that will melt everyone's minds with the power of its sound. Here at measure 31, love's endless light. And everyone is screaming in a refined way. And it is light. And here's what I think gives, this is just my opinion. I think there's a couple of harmonies that give, or notes, tendency tones that give a harmony its shimmer.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of them is a major second. I think major second is a really shimmery, light, harmonic relationship. A minor second is also a little bit, but it's a different color, and I don't know how I would describe it. I don't have the words off the top of my head. But this E flat, F, G, right here, right in a row, is just gonna have a shimmer like the aspen leaves we talked about last time. Here's another one, B flat and C, that give it its shimmer. And then this A flat gives it a little bit of a crunch on the top, but that the light is just almost too bright.
The A natural.
With the A natural there against these B flats.
Yeah.
And the tritone with the E flat. It's like, it's almost too bright, but it's not quite. It's like right on the edge of overexposed. And if you left that out, it would be like, that's a shimmery chord. But then adding that just, I don't know. Anyway, there's my analysis, my harmonic analysis of that chord.
You're hired. Yeah. Obviously we've been saving something. We haven't heard an A. And actually we haven't heard a dense superchord like that anywhere else in the piece, right? So far we've had essentially kind of two-part counterpoints, regardless of how thick the lines are. We've basically had these little two-part counterpoints, this kind of like antiphonal design all the way up into now. And then you have all the voices start kind of like surging against each other, and then they pull together in the word endless light. And you mentioned before that the upward planing gesture in the second verse, where you're like, well, it's, this one's in C. And I think what's really interesting is that I feel like I'm always wondering about how listeners who haven't subjected themselves to years of music school are experiencing music. That vantage point is more interesting to me than my own. And I feel like it would be the rare listener who's sitting there and saying, good heavens, the last time I heard that gesture, it was alternating B flat major and C minor chords, and this time it's C major and D minor chords, right? I just don't believe that person really exists, although I know that there are people who have ears that are exactly that good. But I think what we notice is we have this kind of like hazy sense of general coherence, right? And the composer and the director and the singers might know, like, oh, I see, the first time that ascending kind of gospel-y sound happened, it was anchored at like level 1. And the next time it comes back, it's anchored at like level 2. And so the audience is going to have this sensation that it's like the same, but a little brighter.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
So we get coherence because we're familiar with a gesture, and we're familiar with this basic like dialogue as form, right?
Yeah.
Between
right.
It's we antiphon dialogue. That's kind of like the structure of this world that we're inhabiting. And we feel a general sense of growth and brightening over time. And then when we get to the giant endless light chord, to me, it feels like, oh, we started here and we've climbed up to the top of the mountain. We must be at the top of the mountain now. Wow, look at the view. I wonder what happens next. Oh, it pulls back down. That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the way that it is so, and maybe it's more subtle than I'm imagining, but the closeness that it is married with the text, because one, in love your truth confessing, in hope of heaven's blessing, that's like an exciting text. That's an exciting emotion. Even though we're talking about day is done, it's like this contentment / exhilaration of some possible future as we go to sleep. And it's really reflected. And so you use the rhythm and maybe the metric pacing in addition with stepping up to a new key center that gives it now this new energy. And it's funny, I even wrote new energy right there for the singers because you can hear it when it comes out of the page. Now, how can we as the performers add 10% of an exaggeration onto that so the audience really gets it? And it's really obvious that we're doing something intentional versus just like letting it slide and just doing exactly what's on the page. And hopefully they get this really subtle, nuanced gesture. It's like, no, be generous, like to the audience, like be generous and let them in on the narrative.
Yeah, and I think you do that really well. The way that you guys performed the piece, it has that. It's not just sort of like a pendulum swinging through shades of like mucky shades of gray or something. There's like a clear dark end and a clear light end, and they're juxtaposed.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks. And it's always fun to collaborate because we can talk back and forth about them and, bring it out more. And then once again, subito piano, suddenly quiet, eyes will close. And then I remember you changed this note here to not resolve because you've mentioned a couple times about leaving cadences not boring, no boring cadences, and so till eyes will close and leaving this is now a tighter harmony, a minor second, it's a half step, it's the smallest step in Western classical music. So that's a loaded statement, but we'll just say that's true for the sake of this argument.
You can claim it on a podcast. That's fine.
Yeah. Hot take. Yeah. So anyway, but then to have it unresolved, like you hear that and it naturally wants to resolve down to this just minor triad, but to leave it hanging, eyes will close. And it's almost, I don't know, it's not painful, but it's like, I don't know, there's something yearning, and maybe it's preempting the death may come.
Well, yeah,
like there's this foreshadowing of pain and
I think it is
sorrow.
Yeah, I realize that the text, even though we're calling it "Day is Done," it's not just about evening time, right?
Right. It's life.
There's
a day of your life. Right.
There's a larger sort of extrapolation here. And I think the reason that I wanted to leave it in tension, partially, mechanics, just like have interesting cadences, yes, but also like you're saying, oh, wait a minute, we're talking about death. This isn't just like, see you in the morning, buddy. This is like macro and micro happening at the same time. Yeah. So anyway, and then you do it again here in this G with the G, A, and the B flat, all real tight right there. Yeah. And then death may come. I love that the basses drop out here, and maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but it was like we have this low texture, and a lot of times in a lot of pieces, death and the grave are low, set very low, earthy, but to have death may come in only the upper voices and in a relatively higher place for the tenor, and then just goes to this little angel winged little triplet duet thing here in the upper voices. I think it's so clever, so tasteful. Still abide. Now we get to this God of love, all evil quelling, and it is the most energetic that we've had of that sort of planing idea. It comes right back. And then this is, if we're talking about harmony, this is the most, I don't have a narrative
meaning behind these harmonies that I've ever come up with. And I can just tell you, though, the first time I heard this, I was like, whoa. There's a really fascinating moment, and this is a compliment, just so you know. It might not come out that way, but it is. There's an episode of The Office where Michael Scott is drinking orange juice out of this metal like water bottle.
Oh.
And he goes, "Oh boy, that is metallic-y. That's like drinking a battery." And when I first heard this moment, stay, 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 with the slides, you have this D, E, G, C sharp. So you got a major seventh and a tritone and a second. And then it slides into this of C, D, G, B natural, another major seventh with a second, like parallel major sevenths. But then the G stays. It is like drinking a battery, but it's a refreshing. It's like wild. I've never heard anything like that. And it's so exciting. It is so thrilling to hear that moment. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad it's the good kind of battery.
Yeah. It makes me like the Energizer Bunny, like drinking a battery in the morning.
Well, in the text, following this little contrasting chiaroscuro kind of thing, the second half of each of these stanzas usually has some kind of like pleading request.
Yeah.
Right. Imperative. And so the first part of the third verse, it's like, eyes will close, but you unsleeping watch by our side. Death may come. In love's safekeeping, still we abide. And then it's addressing God like it does in each stanza. God of love, all evil quelling, sin forgiving, fear dispelling, stay with us.
It's
right?
Like
so the word stay, yeah, exactly. The word stay is really, really important. And it's like, please stay, because we're here in the middle of death.
Yeah.
Right? Please
yeah.
stay. And so to me, that begged for the word stay to be repeated. It's we're imploring, we're asking, we're pleading. And each time that it comes back in its repetition, it dials up that intensity, which gets, maybe it's a little bit more acidic or bright.
It's desperate. It's
desperate.
like, but it's desperate, right? Like, and if you think about that moment, and regardless of your faith tradition, we are biologically wired to avoid death at all costs. Sure. So it's like the ultimate human panic moment, and I think it reflects it just perfectly.
Yeah. And so the stay, please stay. And then that creates this sort of little, narratively, it's like this last surge of intensity before we accomplish the rest of the denouement, where it just stay, God of love,
which
stay
is
with
the
us.
Same major seventh, by the way. This is a really tricky passage to sing for a lot for the basses. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. We can handle a challenge every once in a while. People are singers need to become musicians. That maybe is a criticism, but D, C sharp, C, B natural, F, E, like right in a row. Which then this is also like a tritone between that. And so those are just kind of hard to hear at first, but it really is this. And because now this is open, there's nothing else with it, and the spacing is lower. We have this, it's again, the same three intervals, major second, and then major seventh that we had here and here. But then it melts into, and the pedal tone on this E creates that stillness, right, of time stopping. And we have the planing again, sort of, but now it's in this root position where the bottom note is the foundation. So it feels a
Right.
little bit more like stable and grounded. And it's with not the voices aren't as close.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would have what they call closed chord position or open chord position.
Mm-hmm.
And those notes before were as close as they could get in that configuration. Now they're not. They're more open, and it's following the harmonic series, and so it gives it this real, oh, we're arriving now. It's setting up the fact that the close is coming.
Well, we talked about that last time, and that's something I've learned from both my mentor Philip and also from Bach, is that you don't just land the ship. I mean, you can, that'd be fun, but you can do anything you want. They're just notes.
It's true.
There's all these like sort of signaling devices that I think are where you're in this kind of, you're in relationship with the listener, and you kind of start doing these signaling things, because when it's on that stay with us, you know that the piece isn't over because there's a comma both in the text and in the music, but something inside yourself says, oh, this is about to be over. And so then you get one more phrase, this eventide, and sure enough, it does land. It feels like it's going to cool down and land all the way on the ground. And then at the very last bit, it just sort of like lifts and disappears back into the ether. And you're not sure whether all of this was F major or B flat major or what, like, where have we been? And my confession as a composer is I don't care, and I don't want you to know.
Yeah.
But I do want you to feel like it has landed at exactly the right moment, and it leaves you feeling like, oh, yeah.
I think that what you just did, is exactly the feeling after this piece. It's a little microcosm for life, with highs and lows and ups and downs and bright and dark, and these exploration of opposites, which we've talked about before. And then this really smooth, gentle landing, which is really cool because you have this B natural here. So you have this G-ish sensibility with this cool F in there, because why not? That anticipates the final. And so you have B natural here, and then the very next beat you have B flat in the tenor. There's another cross relation there.
Guilty as charged. I'm always doing stuff like that.
And it's because it's a color, like it's a really great use of color, and it's kind of like, you don't want it, like we talked about last time, you don't want to end with dum 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 dum,
right,
dum dum. Like, no one, like, it's this, it leaves room for the audience. I think this is another way where you as the composer leave room for the audience to feel whatever they feel versus telling them how to feel. You can do that with text, you can do that with narrations in the concert, but you can also do that with the notes themselves. Yeah. And I think this is a great example of, this is my interpretation of this text. Here it is. And now go do something with it. And we've arrived, but there's more. Yeah. And that part's up to you. You know? So,
well, it's interesting. You were talking about the difference between major seconds and minor seconds earlier, and we could talk about that endlessly. But in this last system, the soprano keeps sliding down in these whole steps, major seconds, and that E flat. If you take B flat as the home for this piece, you could make that argument, since it ends on a B flat major chord. That E flat is a way of sort of reassuring us. It has this like falling gravity towards the D natural, which is the third of B flat, and so it has this kind of plagal reassurance that tells us that we are indeed resolving. It's complicated a little bit by the fact that we also aren't. We also feel like maybe F is home, and maybe what we're hearing is this kind of like sort of Mixolydian F or something like that, and so that when it finally does end and you hear an F major, oops, in first inversion, followed by a G major, in first inversion, landing on a B flat major, oops, in first inversion. It feels like it's sort of a rock and roll move, where you go 1 major 2 up to the 4 chord. I can think of a couple of different songs that have that as a key feature. That one CeeLo Green song that was everywhere. But are we hearing it as resolving to B flat as a home bass, as a tonic, or are we hearing it as F on its way to landing on the 4 chord, which should leave us feeling sort of like okay, but not with total closure,
but not great.
Well, I don't know. And I think what you get is a little bit of both flavors, right? And I love I love ambiguity because it keeps you guessing. It keeps
it's a harmonic listener. Optical illusion, right?
Yeah.
Is it a duck or a rabbit? And it's both. And but it's a harmonic version of that, you know. And I think it's really cool. Well,
the day is done.
We'll let you hear all of those. And the episode is done.
There you go. So day is done and a duck as a rabbit.
As the phrase goes.
One in hope of heaven's blessing, may we see in love's possessing, love's, 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 love's endless light. Eyes will close. forgiving, fear, dispelling. Stay, stay, stay with us, our hearts indwelling. Stay, 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 Stay with us this eventide, this eventide, this eventide.
Thank you for joining us today. It was really fun to talk about harmony. We could have gotten way nerdier, way more detailed, and maybe we will in a future episode, but it's really awesome to talk through Andrew's approach to harmony in that piece, how it explored colors of light and dark, and how it helped tell the story. If you like the show, if you like Sound of Ages, follow us on the Instagram, on the Facebook, follow the show on YouTube, click like, click subscribe, click the bell so you get updated when we get new episodes out, and we will catch you next time on the Sound of Ages podcast.